The stars looked cold and distant through the viewport of the command ship. Commander Vexlar stared at them, wondering if this would be the last time he saw anything beautiful. His 4 eyes blinked slowly, a sign of exhaustion that any Kelthani would recognize. He had not slept properly in 6 days. Behind him, the bridge crew worked in tense silence. Screens showed the same terrible information over and over. The Zithran fleet was coming. 2,000 warships moving through space like a swarm of metal locusts. They would arrive in less than 30 minutes. Vexlar had only 300 ships left to fight them. 3 years ago, the Galactic Coalition controlled 40 systems. Now they controlled 3. 3 years ago, there were celebrations and festivals across a dozen worlds. Now there were only refugees and funerals. The Zithrans had crushed everything in their path. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply took what they wanted and destroyed anyone who resisted. Vexlar looked at the planet below his ship. Kelvar Prime was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. 12 billion people lived down there. Most of them were trying to evacuate right now, crowding onto colony ships and transport vessels. They knew what was coming. Everyone knew. A communication officer spoke up, her voice shaking slightly. "Commander, the last transport ship is launching now. They estimate 90% of the population has been evacuated. 90%. That meant over 1 billion people were still down there. There was no more time to save them." "Thank you, officer," Vexlar said quietly. He turned to his tactical officer. "Status of our fleet?" The tactical officer, a young Kelthani named Pexnor, brought up the display. "All ships are in defensive formation around the evacuation routes. We have ammunition for approximately 40 minutes of combat. Shield generators are at 70% capacity. 15 ships reported critical damage from the last engagement and should not be in combat at all. 40 minutes of fighting. Against 2,000 Zythran ships, 40 minutes might as well be 4 seconds. Vexlar's communication panel beeped. It was Admiral Threnkor from the Vakrian heavy cruiser. "Vexlar, we need to discuss retreat options." "There are no retreat options," Vexlar replied. "If we run, the Zithrans will catch the evacuation ships. Millions will die. If we stay, we all die," Threnkor said. His voice was not angry, just tired. "We have fought well, old friend, but this is the end. We cannot win this battle." Vexlar knew Threnkor was right. Every tactical analysis said the same thing. The Coalition fleet would be destroyed in less than an hour. The Zithrans would then hunt down the evacuation ships. The war would be over. "The Coalition would cease to exist, I know," Vexlar said finally, "but we will buy as much time as we can. Every minute we fight is another minute for those civilians to get to safety. Even if it is hopeless, we must try." Threnkor was silent for a moment. Then he said, "You are a good commander, Vexlar. It has been an honor to serve with you. And with you, my friend." The communication ended. Vexlar looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. They were all so young. Most of them had joined the Coalition fleet thinking they would explore new worlds and make scientific discoveries. Instead, they had spent 3 years running and fighting and watching their friends die. "All hands, this is Commander Vexlar," he said, his voice broadcasting to every ship in the fleet. "The Zithran Armada will be here in 25 minutes. I will not lie to you. We are outnumbered. We are outgunned. By every tactical measure, we cannot win this fight." He paused, letting that sink in. "But we are not fighting to win. We are fighting so that others may live. Behind us are ships carrying billions of innocent people. Children, families. People who have done nothing wrong except exist in a galaxy that has turned cruel. If we do not stand here, they will die. So we will stand. We will fight. And we will show the Zithrans that the Coalition does not surrender. Even at the end." There was silence across the fleet. Then slowly, responses came back. "Understood, Commander. We stand with you. For the Coalition." Vexlar felt a strange sense of peace. At least they would die with honor. His communication panel beeped again. This time it was from a much smaller ship, a science vessel called the Starbound Hope. The captain was a human named Daniel Hayes. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only made first contact 2 years ago, and their homeworld was incredibly far away. Earth had sent small exploration teams to learn about the galaxy, and Daniel's team was one of them. There were only 8 humans on his ship, studying Coalition technology and culture. Vexlar had met Daniel several times. He liked the human. Daniel was curious and friendly, always asking questions about everything. He had a strange sense of humor that Vexlar did not always understand, but there was something genuine about him. Something warm. "Commander Vexlar, this is Captain Hayes," Daniel's voice came through. "I need to speak with you privately." "It's urgent." Vexlar was surprised. What could be urgent now? "Captain Hayes, we are about to engage in our final battle. Unless you have information about the Zithran fleet, this will have to wait." "It's about reinforcements," Daniel said. Vexlar felt a flash of irritation. "Captain, Earth has no military presence in this region of space. Your homeworld is 12,000 light-years away. I appreciate your concern, but there are no reinforcements coming. Please, Commander, just give me 2 minutes." There was something in Daniel's voice, something excited. Vexlar made a decision. "Very well. Secure channel." The communication switched to a private line. Daniel's face appeared on the screen. He was smiling, which seemed very strange given the circumstances. Humans had expressions that were similar to Kelthani in some ways, but their smiles always seemed wider, more energetic. "Commander, I just received a message from Earth. From our military command. They say reinforcements are arriving in 6 minutes. Vexlar stared at him. "Captain Hayes, that is impossible. Earth has no fleet. You told me yourself that your people are still building their first real warships. How could reinforcements arrive in 6 minutes? "I know how it sounds," Daniel said. "But you need to trust me. Earth has been working on something. When I sent back reports about the Zithran War, about what was happening to the Coalition, our leaders made a decision. They mobilized everything, every resource, every factory, every shipyard. In 2 years? Vexlar could not believe it. "Captain, it took the Coalition 50 years to build our current fleet. You cannot construct a military armada in 2 years. You can if you have 8 billion people who are really, really angry," Daniel said. His smile faded, replaced by something harder. "Commander, I sent back footage of Zithran attacks, of civilian ships being destroyed, of planets being bombed. My people saw that and they were furious.
Humanity has fought wars for thousands of years.
We know how to build weapons. We know how to fight. And when we learned that there were good people out here being slaughtered by bullies, we decided to do something about it." Vexlar wanted to believe him, but it still seemed impossible. "Even if you built ships, how would they get here? Wormhole technology requires enormous amounts of energy. Creating a stable passage across 12,000 light-years would need power equivalent to a star." "I know," Daniel said. "That's why Earth built 6 fusion reactors the size of small moons, just for powering the wormhole generators." Vexlar felt his heart skip a beat. "You built what?" "Look, I don't understand all the technical details, but our scientists took your Coalition wormhole technology and scaled it up. Way up. They say it will work. They say the fleet is ready, and they say to hold position for 6 more minutes. 6 minutes. The Zithrans would arrive in 23 minutes. If human reinforcements were really coming, they would be here before the battle started. But if Daniel was wrong, Vexlar would have wasted precious time that could have been used for tactical preparation." He looked at Daniel's face on the screen. The human was serious now, his eyes intense. "Commander, I know you have no reason to trust this, but I am asking you to believe me. Help is coming, real help. Just hold on for 6 more minutes." Vexlar made his decision. "Very well, Captain Hayes, we will wait. But if no reinforcements arrive, we will proceed with our defensive plan." "Understood. Thank you, Commander." The communication ended. Vexlar sat back in his command chair, feeling a strange mixture of hope and doubt. He did not tell his crew about the conversation. There was no point in giving them false hope. The minutes crawled by. 5 minutes. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. The Zithran fleet appeared on long-range sensors. 2,000 ships exactly as predicted. They were moving fast, their weapons already powering up. 2 minutes. Vexlar's tactical officer reported, "Commander, Zithran fleet will be in weapons range in 18 minutes. 1 minute. Vexlar felt his hope fading. There were no reinforcements. Daniel had been wrong, or his people had been wrong, or something had gone terribly wrong with their plan. It did not matter. The result was the same. "All ships prepare for combat," Vexlar ordered. Then space tore open. It started as a single point of light, bright blue and pulsing. Then it expanded, growing larger and larger until it was a massive circle of swirling energy. A wormhole. But it was huge, far larger than any wormhole Vexlar had ever seen. The Zithran commanders saw the wormholes open and immediately knew something was wrong. They had fought the Coalition for 3 years and had learned all their tactics. They knew how many ships the Coalition had left. They knew how weak their fleet was. This should have been an easy victory, but these ships were not Coalition vessels. These were something new. War leader Krathix stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Worldbreaker, and watched the sensor data pour in. 5,000 ships, 5,000 unknown warships larger and more heavily armed than anything his people had encountered before. Identify those vessels, he ordered his sensor officer. Unknown design, war leader. They match no known species in our database. Hull composition is unusual. Heavy armor plating, multiple weapon systems. Energy signatures are enormous. Krathix felt a moment of uncertainty. The Zithran Empire had conquered 15 species. They had fought countless battles. They had never lost. But this was unexpected. Where did they come from? He demanded. The wormholes appeared without warning. We did not detect any energy buildup or spatial distortions until they were already opening. Their technology is very advanced. One of Krathix's subordinates spoke up. War leader, should we withdraw and call for reinforcements? Krathix snarled at him. Zithrans did not retreat. To retreat was to show weakness, and weakness meant death. We have 2,000 ships. They may have more vessels, but quantity does not equal quality. We will crush them as we have crushed all others. He opened a communication channel to all Zithran ships. All vessels target the unknown fleet. Fire at will. Show them the power of the Zithran Empire. 2,000 Zithran warships opened fire at once. Plasma cannons lit up space with green energy. Missiles streaked toward the human fleet. Energy beams cut through the void. It was enough firepower to destroy a planet. The Zithran weapons hit the human shields and stopped. The humans had been studying Coalition battle recordings for 2 years. Daniel Hayes and his team had sent back detailed information about every Zithran weapon, every tactic, every strategy. Earth scientists had analyzed it all. They knew exactly what the Zithrans would do, and they had built their defenses specifically to counter it. The plasma that melted Coalition shields in seconds barely made the human barriers flicker. The missiles that had destroyed so many ships exploded harmlessly against point defense systems. The energy beams dispersed across reflective armor plating. On the bridge of the UNS Valiant Fury, Admiral Morrison watched the Zithran attack with cold satisfaction. Shields holding at 98%. No damage to any vessel. His tactical officer, a woman named Lieutenant Commander Sarah Phillips, reported, All enemy ships have fired, sir. They're recharging weapons now. Good, Morrison said. Now it's our turn. Open a channel to the Coalition fleet. Commander Vexlar's face appeared on the screen. The Kelthani commander looked stunned, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. Commander, this is Admiral Morrison. We're taking tactical control of this engagement. Pull your forces back to defensive positions around the evacuation ships. We'll handle the Zithrans. Admiral, there are 2,000 enemy vessels, Vexlar said. Even with your numbers, this will be a difficult battle. Morrison smiled. Commander, this won't be a battle. This will be an extermination. Watch and learn. Morrison out. He turned to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Harris, you are authorized to engage. Show them what happens when you mess with our friends. Lieutenant Pete Harris had been waiting for this moment. He had trained for 2 years. He had run simulations 1,000 times. He had studied every battle the Zithrans had ever fought. He knew exactly what to do. Aye, sir. Main weapon charging. Target locked on the enemy command cluster. The UNS Valiant Fury had a weapon that the Coalition had never imagined. Human scientists had taken theories about gravity manipulation and turned them into reality. They had built a cannon that could create a temporary black hole. The weapon fired. There was no sound in space, but every sensor in the system registered the massive energy discharge. A point of absolute darkness appeared in the middle of the Zithran fleet, right where their command ships were grouped together. The black hole existed for 3 seconds. In that time, it pulled in 200 Zithran warships. The ships did not explode or burn. They simply stretched and compressed and vanished into the impossible gravity. When the black hole collapsed, there was nothing left. 200 ships and all their crews had been erased from existence. Krathix watched in horror as 1/10 of his fleet disappeared. What was that? What kind of weapon was that? His sensor officer was frantically checking readings. Unknown technology, war leader. It created a localized gravitational singularity. I have never seen anything like it. Before Krathix could respond, the rest of the human fleet opened fire. Captain Lisa Grant commanded the carrier UNS Horizon Strike. Her ship was 4 kilometers long and carried 3,000 autonomous fighters. These were not piloted by living beings. They were controlled by advanced artificial intelligence that could think and react faster than any organic mind. Launch all fighters, she ordered. 3,000 small craft erupted from the Horizon Strike and 24 other carriers. They moved like a swarm of insects, darting and weaving through space. The Zithrans tried to target them, but the fighters were too fast, too unpredictable. The fighters had a simple mission: find weak points and exploit them. The AI systems had analyzed every Zithran ship design. They knew where the shield generators were located. They knew where the weapon systems were vulnerable. They knew where to strike to cause maximum damage. The fighters swarmed over Zithran ships like piranhas attacking prey. They fired precision missiles at shield generators. When the shields failed, they targeted engines and weapon batteries. Zithran ships started exploding, their reactors overloading, their hulls breaking apart. Commander Jake Foster led a squadron of 20 destroyers. His ships were smaller than the Valiant Fury, but they carried their own terrible weapons. Each destroyer was equipped with railguns that could accelerate projectiles to 7% of light speed. All ships, target enemy cruisers, fire on my mark. The destroyers fired in perfect synchronization. Tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons, shot through space at impossible speeds. The Zithrans had excellent energy shields, but they had never developed defenses against kinetic weapons. Why would they? No one used kinetic weapons in space combat. Energy weapons were more efficient, easier to aim, and did not require physical ammunition. But the humans had studied history. They knew that sometimes old solutions worked better than new ones. The tungsten rods hit Zithran ships and punched straight through their hulls. The kinetic energy was so enormous that it did not matter what armor the ships had. The rods went through one side and out the other, leaving massive holes. Ships began venting atmosphere. Internal explosions rippled through their structures. 50 Zithran cruisers were destroyed in the first volley. Jake Foster allowed himself a small smile. Reload, next target cluster. The Zithrans tried to adapt. They attempted to focus their fire on individual human ships, hoping to overwhelm the shields through concentrated attacks. It did not work. The human point defense systems were too good. Laser grids tracked and destroyed incoming missiles. Electromagnetic pulses disrupted Zithran targeting systems. Countermeasures confused their sensors. Captain Nina Wells commanded a squadron of stealth frigates. Her ships had been positioned behind the Zithran fleet even before the battle started, invisible to sensors, waiting for the perfect moment. That moment was now. All ships, decloak and target enemy command carriers, fire everything. The stealth frigates appeared like ghosts, materializing right behind the Zithran fleet. They fired torpedoes and missiles at point-blank range. The Zithran command ships, already panicking from the devastation in front of them, had no idea the attack was coming from behind. 6 command carriers exploded within seconds of each other. The Zithran fleet suddenly had no central coordination. Individual ship captains started making their own decisions, and those decisions were all different. Some tried to run, some tried to fight, some just sat there, frozen by fear. 30 seconds had passed since Admiral Morrison gave the order to engage. Half of the Zithran fleet was already destroyed. War leader Krathix realized he was about to die. His flagship was burning, half the systems offline. Around him, his proud armada was being torn apart like paper. These humans, whoever they were, fought like nothing he had ever seen. They were precise. They were efficient. They were merciless. All ships retreat, he shouted into his communication system. Full speed, jump to hyperspace as soon as possible. But the humans had anticipated that too. The stealth frigates had destroyed the command carriers, but they had also deployed mines around the edges of the battlefield. When Zithran ships tried to jump to hyperspace, they triggered the mines. Explosions rippled through space, destroying dozens more vessels. The remaining Zithran ships were trapped. Behind them were mines. In front of them were 5,000 human warships. There was nowhere to run. 45 seconds had passed. Admiral Morrison opened a channel to all Zithran vessels. His voice was cold and hard. Zithran fleet, this is Admiral Kyle Morrison. You are defeated. Power down all weapons immediately and prepare to be. 2 hours after the battle, Commander Vexlar received an invitation to meet with Admiral Morrison aboard the UNS Valiant Fury. He brought Daniel Hayes with him, both as a translator and as someone who understood human culture better than any other coalition member. The shuttle ride to the human flagship gave Vexlar time to study the ship. It was enormous, far larger than any coalition vessel. The hull was covered in angular armor plating that seemed designed to deflect energy weapons. Weapon batteries protruded from every surface, each one capable of destroying a cruiser. It was a ship built for one purpose: war. When the shuttle landed in the hangar bay, Vexlar was surprised by what he saw. Hundreds of humans were working, moving equipment, repairing fighters, organizing supplies. They all moved with purpose and efficiency. No one was standing around. No one looked confused or uncertain. It was like watching a machine made of living parts. A young human officer met them at the shuttle. She saluted crisply. "Commander Vexlar, Captain Hayes, welcome aboard the Valiant Fury. I'm Lieutenant Amy Chen. The Admiral is waiting for you in the conference room. Please follow me." As they walked through the corridors, Vexlar noticed how different the ship was from coalition vessels. Everything was utilitarian and practical. There were no decorations, no artwork, no comfortable spaces. Just gray metal walls, bright lights, and endless rooms full of weapons and equipment. Daniel noticed his expression. "Not very pretty, is it? Humanity built these ships in a hurry. We focused on function, not comfort. These vessels were designed to fight and win, nothing else." "It shows," Vexlar said. "I have never seen a ship so thoroughly dedicated to combat." They reached the conference room. Lieutenant Chen opened the door and gestured for them to enter. Admiral Morrison was waiting inside, along with several other human officers. Morrison stood when they entered, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. Vexlar had learned about handshakes from Daniel and reciprocated. "Commander Vexlar, thank you for coming. Please sit. We have much to discuss." The conference room had a large table with holographic displays. Morrison activated one, showing the Kelvar system and the surrounding sectors. "First, let me introduce my senior staff," Morrison said, gesturing to the other humans. "This is Captain Lisa Grant, commander of our carrier operations. Commander Jake Foster, who leads our destroyer squadrons. Captain Nina Wells, in charge of stealth operations. And Captain Ben Wright, my chief tactical officer." Each officer nodded as they were introduced. Vexlar noticed they all had the same expression: calm, focused, professional. These were people who took their jobs very seriously. Morrison sat down and looked directly at Vexlar. "Commander, I know you have questions. Before we discuss strategy and next steps, I want to answer those questions. Please ask whatever you want to know." Vexlar appreciated the directness. "Admiral, how did you build this fleet so quickly? The Coalition has been constructing warships for centuries, and we have never achieved anything like what I saw today." Morrison nodded to Captain Wright, who brought up new images on the holographic display. They showed Earth's solar system, but it looked completely different from the images Daniel had shown Vexlar 2 years ago. The asteroid belt was now filled with massive structures. Mars had rings of shipyards around it. Even Venus had construction platforms in orbit. When Captain Hayes sent us information about the Zithran War, Earth's governments held an emergency meeting, Morrison explained. Every nation, every leader, every person with power came together for the first time in human history. We had one goal: build a fleet capable of stopping the Zithrans. Captain Wright continued the explanation. We converted our entire industrial economy to military production. Every factory that made civilian products started making military equipment. We built shipyards in the asteroid belt on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, in orbit around every planet. We had 8 billion people working toward one goal. 8 billion? Vexlar was stunned. The entire coalition has a population of 40 billion across 7 species. You mobilized your entire world? We did, Morrison said. Because the reports Captain Hayes sent showed us something important. The Zithrans do not just conquer. They destroy. They kill civilians. They bomb cities. They enslave populations. When humanity learned that was happening to good people like yourselves, we became angry. Very angry. Daniel spoke up. Admiral, Commander Vexlar is curious about our weapons technology. The Coalition has never seen anything like what we use today. Morrison smiled slightly. That's because we approach warfare differently than most species. Let me explain our philosophy. Captain Grant, tell the commander about the autonomous fighters. Lisa Grant pulled up images of the small fighters that had swarmed the Zithran fleet. These are AI-controlled attack craft. The Coalition, I understand, believes that artificial intelligence is dangerous and should not be used in military applications. Vexlar nodded. That is correct. AI systems can malfunction. They can make unpredictable decisions. Most species use organic pilots for that reason. Organic pilots are limited, Grant said matter-of-factly. They need oxygen, they get tired, they feel fear. They can only process so much information at once. Our AI systems have none of those limitations. Each fighter can think and react 1,000 times faster than any living pilot. They coordinate perfectly with each other. They never panic, never hesitate, never make emotional decisions. But what if they malfunction? Vexlar asked. What if they turn on you? We have safeguards, Grant said. Multiple layers of control systems, shutdown protocols, and hardwired limitations. But more importantly, we tested them extensively before deploying them in combat. We know they work. Commander Foster spoke next. The railguns we used are based on old human technology. Centuries ago, humans fought wars using kinetic projectiles, bullets, artillery shells, missiles. When we started building space warships, everyone told us to use energy weapons. But we asked ourselves, why? Kinetic weapons worked for thousands of years on Earth. Why wouldn't they work in space? Because energy weapons are more efficient, Vexlar said. They do not require ammunition storage. They are easier to aim over long distances. True, Foster agreed, but they also require enormous amounts of energy, and most species develop shields specifically to counter them. Kinetic weapons are different. They're simple. They're reliable. And if you fire a metal rod at 7% of light speed, it doesn't matter what kind of shield you have. Physics wins. Captain Wells brought up information about the stealth frigates. Our stealth technology is based on quantum field manipulation. We can bend electromagnetic radiation around our ships, making them invisible to virtually all sensors. The Coalition has some stealth technology, but it's not as advanced. How did you develop all of this so quickly? Vexlar asked. These technologies require decades of research. Morrison leaned forward. Commander, humanity has been preparing for war since the beginning of our civilization. We've fought thousands of wars. We've developed millions of weapons. We've studied tactics and strategy for 10,000 years. When we needed to build a space fleet, we didn't start from scratch. We took everything we'd learned from our entire history and applied it to a new environment. He pulled up more images. These showed human military history, ancient battles with swords and spears, medieval sieges with catapults and arrows, modern warfare with tanks and aircraft, nuclear weapons tests, satellite systems. Every weapon we use today is based on concepts humans have been refining for millennia. Morrison continued. The gravity weapon? Based on theoretical physics we've been studying for 100 years. The AI fighters? Based on drone technology we developed 50 years ago. The railguns? Based on magnetic acceleration principles we've understood for 2 centuries. We just scaled everything up and adapted it for space combat. Vexlar was beginning to understand. Humanity had not developed new technology in 2 years. They had taken existing technology and weaponized it. But why did you come here? Vexlar asked. Earth is 12,000 light-years away. You have no strategic interest in this region of space. Why risk your ships and your people for the Coalition? Morrison's expression became serious. Commander, may I speak bluntly? Please do. When Captain Hayes sent us videos of Zithran attacks, we saw civilians being murdered. We saw cities being destroyed. We saw refugees fleeing with nothing but the clothes on their backs. And we saw Coalition forces fighting desperately to protect those civilians, even when they knew they couldn't win. Morrison stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at space. Humanity has a long history of brutality and violence. We've done terrible things to each other, but we've also learned something important. The strong have a responsibility to protect the weak. When we see innocent people being hurt, we cannot stand by and do nothing. It's not in our nature. He turned back to Vexillar. The coalition values honor, cooperation, and protecting civilians. Those are values humanity respects. When we learned that people who shared our values were being destroyed by bullies, we made a decision. We would help. Not because we expect payment, not because we want territory or resources, but because it's the right thing to do. Vexillar felt something strange. It took him a moment to recognize the 3 months passed like a storm across the galaxy. The human fleet, now working alongside rebuilt coalition forces, swept through Zithran territory with unstoppable momentum. Every battle followed the same pattern. Human ships would arrive, offer terms of surrender, and either accept submission or destroy the enemy in minutes. The Zithrans learned quickly that resistance was pointless. Commander Vexillar stood on the bridge of his flagship, which had been repaired and upgraded with human technology. He was watching a tactical display showing the current state of the war. 3 months ago, the map had been mostly red, indicating Zithran control. Now most of it was green. The coalition had reclaimed 32 of the 40 systems they had lost. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Morrison," his communication officer reported. "He wants to discuss the next operation." "Put him through." Morrison's face appeared on the screen. The Admiral looked tired but satisfied. "Commander, how are the repairs coming on your fleet?" "Well, Admiral, the human engineers have been very helpful. My ships are stronger now than they were before the war started." "Good. We're going to need every vessel we have for the next phase. We're moving on Zithros Prime." Vexillar felt his heart skip. Zithros Prime was the Zithran homeworld, the center of their empire. It was defended by orbital weapons platforms, planetary shields, and the largest concentration of Zithran military forces in the galaxy. "That will be the most difficult battle yet," Vexillar said carefully. "I know. That's why I'm calling. I want to make sure we do this right. The Zithran High Command is on that planet. If we can force them to surrender, the war ends immediately. But if we handle this wrong, it could turn into a massacre." Morrison's expression was serious. "Vexillar, I need you to understand something. Humanity did not come here to commit genocide. We came to stop a war. There's a difference." "I understand, Admiral. What is your plan?" "We're going to surround the planet with overwhelming force. Then we're going to offer terms. If they surrender, we'll accept. If they refuse, we'll disable their defenses without destroying civilian infrastructure. We have weapons that can do that." Vexillar was impressed. Most species, when winning a war, would simply destroy the enemy's homeworld as retribution. The fact that humanity was planning to avoid civilian casualties, even against an enemy that had never shown such mercy, said something important about their character. "When do we move?" Vexillar asked. "Tomorrow. All ships are to gather at the rally point by 0800 hours. We jumped to Zithros Prime at 1000 hours. The communication ended." Vexillar looked at his crew. They had fought beside humans for 3 months now. They had learned to trust these strange beings from a distant world. But tomorrow would be the real test. The next morning, the combined human and coalition fleet gathered in empty space, 50 light-years from Zithros Prime. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 5,000 human warships and 800 coalition vessels all ready for battle. Admiral Morrison addressed the entire fleet. His voice was broadcast to every ship, translated into 7 languages so all coalition species could understand. "This is Admiral Morrison. In a few minutes, we're going to jump to the Zithran homeworld. This will be our final major engagement. I want everyone to remember why we're here. We're not here for conquest. We're not here for revenge. We're here to end a war and bring peace to this region of space." He paused, letting that sink in. The Zithrans have committed terrible crimes. They've killed billions of innocent people. They've destroyed entire civilizations. But that does not give us the right to do the same to them. We will fight with honor. We will minimize civilian casualties. We will show them that there is a better way to exist in this galaxy. Another pause. If they surrender, we accept. If they fight, we win. But either way, this war ends today. All ships prepare to jump. Morrison out. The fleet jumped to hyperspace as one massive unit. When they emerged, they were in orbit around a blue and green planet that looked similar to Earth. Zithros Prime was beautiful, with vast oceans and large continents. 2 billion Zithrans lived on the surface. The Zithran defense fleet was waiting. 300 warships, the last significant military force the Empire had left. Orbital weapons platforms powered up. Planetary shields activated. But the defenders saw the size of the attacking fleet and understood they had no chance. 300 ships against 5,800. It was suicide to even try fighting. Admiral Morrison opened a channel to the surface of Zithros Prime. "This is Admiral Kyle Morrison of the United Nations Space Command. I am requesting communication with the Zithran High Command." For several minutes there was no response. Then a face appeared on the screen. It was a Zithran, but older than any Vexillar had seen before. His scales were pale, his eyes weary. "I am High Chancellor Vornak, leader of the Zithran Empire. You are the human who has destroyed my fleets." "I am," Morrison said calmly. "High Chancellor, your empire is defeated. 32 systems have been liberated. Your military has been reduced to a fraction of its former strength. Further resistance is pointless and will only result in more death. I am here to offer terms of surrender." Vornak's expression was unreadable. "And what terms would those be? Total destruction of my people? Enslavement? Forced relocation?" "None of those things," Morrison said. "The terms are as follows. Immediate and complete disarmament of all military forces. Reparations to be paid to affected coalition species over a period of 50 years. Democratic reforms to your government, to be supervised by the coalition. War crime tribunals for military commanders who ordered attacks on civilians." Vornak stared at him. "That is all? You do not demand our world? You do not demand subjugation?" "No. Humanity has no interest in controlling your planet. We want the war to end. We want you to stop being a threat to peaceful species. Beyond that, what you do is your own business." The High Chancellor was quiet for a long moment. "You could destroy us. You have the power. Why do you offer mercy?" Morrison leaned forward. "Because destroying you would make us no better than you. Yes, you've committed terrible crimes. Yes, you deserve punishment. But genocide is never the answer. We believe in justice, not revenge." On the bridge of his flagship, Commander Vexillar watched the conversation with fascination. He had expected the humans to demand total surrender, occupation, maybe even orbital bombardment. Instead, they were offering reasonable terms that would allow the Zithrans to maintain their dignity while ensuring they could never threaten anyone again. Admiral Threnkor's voice came through on a private channel. "Vexillar, the humans continue to surprise me. After everything the Zithrans did, I would not have blamed them for reducing that planet to ash. But instead they offer peace. It is their way," Vexillar replied. "They are warriors, yes, but they are also philosophers. They believe in fighting only as much as necessary, and no more." On Zithros Prime, High Chancellor Vornak was consulting with his advisors. The conversation was heated. Some wanted to fight to the death. Others argued that surrender was the only logical choice. Vornak listened to all of them, then made his decision. "Admiral Morrison, I accept your terms. The Zithran Empire surrenders unconditionally. We will disarm. We will pay reparations. We will cooperate with war crime investigations. In return, you will not harm our civilian population." "Agreed," Morrison said. "Power down your weapons platforms and have your defense fleet stand down. We'll send representatives to the surface to formalize the surrender." "This war is over, High Chancellor." Vornak nodded slowly. "It is strange. I expected to hate you, human. You have destroyed everything my people built. But instead I find myself respecting you. You fight with honor even when your enemy showed none." Morrison's expression softened slightly. "High Chancellor, the Zithran Empire was built on conquest and fear. It was destined to fall eventually. Be thankful it fell to people who believe in justice rather than vengeance. Your people have a chance now to rebuild and become something better. Don't waste it." The communication ended. Morrison turned to his bridge crew. "All ships stand down from combat status. Maintain defensive positions but do not engage unless fired upon. Captain Wright, organize teams to go to the surface and work out the details of the surrender." "Aye, sir," Wright replied. Throughout the fleet there was a collective release of tension. The war was over. Really truly over. No more fighting. No more death. On the Starbound Hope, Daniel Hayes and his crew were celebrating. They had been with the fleet for the entire campaign, documenting everything, providing intelligence, and occasionally offering advice. Kelly Brooks was laughing and crying at the same time. "We did it. We actually did it. 3 months ago, the coalition was about to be destroyed. Now the war is over. Greg Palmer was more reflective. Earth is going to be famous across the galaxy now. Everyone will know about humanity. They'll know we're powerful. They'll know we're dangerous. Daniel thought about that. Maybe, but hopefully they'll also know we're fair. We had the power to destroy the Zithrans completely, and we chose not to. That says something important about who we are. His communication panel beeped. It was a message from Earth, from the United Nations headquarters. Daniel read it and smiled. Morrison and Daniel walked to the podium together. The crowd's applause was deafening. Vexlar placed the Star of Unity medals around their necks. The medals were made of a rare crystal that glowed with inner light, representing the unity of different species working together. Morrison stepped up to speak. He looked out at the massive crowd, at all the different alien faces watching him with gratitude and respect. "Thank you for this honor," Morrison began. "But I must be honest with you. Humanity did not save the Coalition alone. Your own forces fought with courage and determination for 3 years before we arrived. You protected civilians even when you knew you could not win. You maintained your honor even in the darkest times. That is what impressed us most about you." He gestured to the Coalition officers standing nearby. "We provided weapons and numbers, but you provided something equally important. You provided purpose. You showed us that there were good people in this galaxy worth protecting. You reminded us why we fight in the first place, not for conquest or glory, but to defend those who cannot defend themselves." The crowd erupted again. Morrison waited, then continued. "The war is over, but the work is just beginning. The Zithrans damaged dozens of worlds. Billions of people are displaced. Infrastructure needs rebuilding. Economies need stabilizing. This will take years, perhaps decades, but humanity is committed to helping. We're not going anywhere." He looked at Vexlar. "Commander, my government has authorized me to announce something. Earth is establishing a permanent military presence in this region of space. We're building a starbase in the Kelver system that will serve as headquarters for the Terran Coalition Defense Initiative. We'll have ships stationed here permanently to respond to any future threats." Vexlar felt his heart swell with emotion. "Admiral, that is extraordinarily generous. The Coalition cannot thank you enough." "You already have," Morrison said simply. "You thanked us by being the kind of people worth saving." Daniel stepped forward to speak next. "I've been asked to lead the new defense initiative. It's going to be a combined force with human and Coalition personnel working together. We'll patrol the region, respond to emergencies, and make sure nothing like the Zithran War ever happens again." He looked out at the crowd. 3 years ago, I came to this region of space as an explorer. I wanted to learn about alien cultures and make friends. I did make friends. Commander Vexlar became one of my closest companions. I learned about Kelthani honor and Vakrian wisdom. I saw how 7 different species could work together despite their differences. Daniel's expression became more serious. "When the war started, I was horrified. I sent reports back to Earth showing what was happening. I never imagined my people would respond the way they did. But they did, because that's who humans are. We cannot stand by and watch innocent people suffer. It's not in our nature," he smiled. "The galaxy is a big place. There are probably thousands of species we haven't met yet. Some will be friendly. Some might be hostile. But whatever happens, the Coalition and humanity will face it together. We're allies now, partners, friends, and nothing will change that." The ceremony continued for another hour. Representatives from each Coalition species spoke about their experiences during the war and their hopes for the future. Human officers were introduced and welcomed. Plans for the starbase were revealed, showing a massive structure that would be both a military installation and a cultural center where humans and aliens could interact and learn from each other. When the ceremony finally ended, Vexlar found himself walking through the plaza with Morrison and Daniel. The crowd had dispersed, but small groups of civilians kept approaching to thank them. Children wanted to see the human visitors up close. Artists wanted to paint portraits. Journalists wanted interviews. Morrison handled it all with patience and good humor. He shook hands with everyone who asked. He posed for pictures with children. He answered questions about Earth and human culture. Daniel noticed Vexlar watching Morrison interact with the crowds. "He's good at this, isn't he?" "He is," Vexlar agreed. "I expected human military leaders to be cold and distant. But your admiral is warm and personable." "That's part of what makes him a good leader," Daniel explained. "He understands that military power is only part of what matters. Building relationships and trust is just as important. The best warriors are also diplomats. They reached a quiet garden at the edge of the plaza. Vexler suggested they sit and rest for a while. The garden was beautiful, with plants from 6 different coalition worlds growing together in harmony. "Commander, may I ask you something personal?" Morrison said. "Of course, Admiral. During our first meeting, you mentioned that the coalition had been fighting for 3 years. You said you were exhausted and had lost hope. What kept you going?" Vexler thought about the question carefully. "Duty, I suppose, and the knowledge that if I gave up, billions of people would die. I could not let that happen even if it meant my own death." "That's what I thought," Morrison said. "You kept fighting because it was the right thing to do, even when you knew you would probably lose. That's real courage, Commander. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite fear." Daniel added, "When I reported back to Earth about the coalition, I told them about conversations like this. I told them about commanders who valued civilian lives more than military victories. I told them about species who refused to become monsters even when fighting monsters. That's what convinced Earth to help. We saw people who shared our values." Vexler felt something he had not felt in years. Genuine happiness. "I am glad we met, Daniel Hayes. Your curiosity and friendship started all of this. If you had not come to this region of space, if you had not sent those reports, the coalition would have fallen. Billions would be dead or enslaved. I was just doing my job," Daniel said modestly. "Exploring and learning. I didn't expect it would lead to all this." Morrison stood up and looked at the sky. The sun was setting, painting the horizon in brilliant colors. "Gentlemen, I need to return to my ship. We have a lot of work to do. The starbase won't build itself, and we need to start coordinating with coalition military forces." Vexler stood as well. "Admiral, before you go, I have a question about the future. What happens when the starbase is complete? Will you return to Earth?" Morrison shook his head. "No, I'm staying here. Earth is sending another admiral to take command of the main fleet. I'm going to be the permanent liaison between humanity and the coalition. This is my home now." He extended his hand to Vexler. "We're in this together, Commander. For the long term. Humanity doesn't abandon its friends." They shook hands, and Vexler felt the strength and sincerity in Morrison's grip. After Morrison left, Daniel and Vexler sat in the garden a while longer, watching the stars come out. "It's strange," Vexler said quietly. 3 months ago, I thought I would be dead by now. I thought the coalition would be destroyed and forgotten. Instead, we're stronger than ever, and we have humanity as our allies." "The galaxy is full of surprises," Daniel replied. "Some bad, some good. The Zithrans were a bad surprise. Humanity was a good one. What do you think will happen next?" Vexler asked. "The war is over. The Zithrans are defeated. What new challenges will we face?" Daniel leaned back and looked at the stars. "I don't know. But I'm sure there will be challenges. There always are. Maybe we'll encounter new hostile species. Maybe there will be natural disasters or cosmic phenomena that threaten worlds. Maybe internal politics will create problems. The universe is a big and complicated place." He looked at Vexler. "But whatever happens, we'll handle it together. That's the important part. Humans and the coalition working as partners. We'll share knowledge, resources, and support. We'll be stronger together than we ever could be alone." "I believe you," Vexler said. "Your people have proven yourselves to be true friends. The coalition will not forget that." 6 months later, the Terran Coalition Defense Initiative headquarters was complete. The starbase orbited Kelvar Prime, a massive structure 3 kilometers across. It housed military facilities, research laboratories, living quarters for 10,000 personnel, and cultural centers where humans and aliens could interact. Daniel Hayes stood in his new office looking out at the planet below. His official title was Commander of Joint Operations, which meant he was responsible for coordinating all military activities in the region. It was a huge responsibility, but he was ready for it. His assistant, Kelly Brooks, entered with a data pad. "Commander, the morning briefing is ready. We have reports from 12 sectors, 3 diplomatic meetings scheduled, and a request from Earth for updated tactical assessments." Daniel smiled. "Sounds like a normal day. Let's get started." As he walked to the briefing room, he passed coalition officers working alongside human personnel. A Kelthani engineer was collaborating with a human technician on shield modifications. A Vakrian tactical officer was teaching human cadets about coalition battle formations. Everywhere he looked, different species were working together. learning from each other, building something new. The briefing room was filled with officers from both human and coalition forces. Captain Lisa Grant was there, now serving as Chief of Carrier Operations for the entire region. Commander Jake Foster led the fast response teams. Captain Nina Wells oversaw intelligence gathering. And